That's that dormant volcano that I spoke about in the fire and ice presentation yesterday. It's been dormant for nearly 6,000 years. But not so long ago, back in 1974, April the 1st, a local prankster took up 300 tyres, set them alight there in the crater, and scared everybody in Sitka, thinking that it was no longer a dormant volcano. That date, again, was April the 1st, so it was an April Fool's Day joke. You might hear that story again at some point tomorrow. Now let's have a quick rundown of the history, of course. The Tlingit, well, they were there originally. Speaking of Tlingit, who went to Kevin's presentation today? Isn't that an incredible presentation? I can't believe that guy. He's quite a young, he's a fun guy, and then when you hear that he was able to change legislation, it's a really cool story. So I'm glad you got to see that. But yeah, so the Tlingit, they originally settled in the area thousands of years ago. They named the town Sitka, that was later anglicized to what we say today, Sitka. And from decades of this native rule, we'll move through to the Russian rule. And the Russians, they first arrived in search of fur, sea otter pelts specifically. And that's a really important thing to remember, because a lot of what you can do tomorrow is about getting out there and seeing the sea otters. So yes, it was the lucrative fur trade, and the Russians, they established a colony back in 1804. Sitka was their capital. They called it something else though. They called it New Archangel. And I can tell you that Russia controlled Alaska up until the year 1867. That's when the Alaska Purchase took place. If I have $1 for every time I say 1867 in this presentation, I might have about $8 or $9. So I can tell you that was a long time ago, but you can definitely still feel the Russian influence in Sitka today. And of course, it eventually landed in the hands of the United States when they officially purchased Alaska off Russia. And it was actually October 18, 1867. Any Canadians in the room? Okay, same year as your Confederation. So just last year it was 150 years. And Sitka was the site of the ceremonial transfer. Sitka is the only place that celebrates Alaska Day on that date, October 18. And I can tell you the very quick story. It was the Secretary of State at the time. He was William Seward, just like the name of the place called Seward, just like the title of Seward's Folly. And so the cost to purchase Alaska, it was a staggering $7.2 million. And so you probably heard me say this before. I'm from Sydney, Australia. You can buy about 3.5 houses today for that amount of money. But they got all of Alaska, 2 cents an acre. That's incredible. What a great idea. But actually a lot of people didn't think it was a good idea at the time. They referred to Alaska as a worthless piece of real estate, just a big frozen land that you could do nothing with. Well, how wrong they were, and of course their opinions definitely changed once gold was found and then oil was found, and now it's just a big tourist destination. So I always say I wish Seward was alive to reap the rewards, but he wasn't at that time. And fun foodie fact, the baked Alaska, for anyone who likes that dessert, that was created to celebrate the Alaska Purchase here. And again, Sitka did serve as the capital of Alaska up until 1906, and that's when it transferred over to Juneau, where we were yesterday. Now I have to talk about the Sitka spruce because we've been surrounded by it all week. We will continue to be. It's the #1 tree up here in the Tongass National Forest, and it's Alaska's state tree, and of course, well, it's the Sitka spruce, so I've got to talk about it. So much of it that it's been used in many different ways in different times. It's used for medicinal purposes. You can get natural oils out of the tree. They put a lot of the flavorings, the tips, in beer, moonshine, sauces. I've had pasta sauce with it in before, jams, jellies, all those different things. The bark is used in native Alaskan basket weaving designs, and it's the prized wood for string instrument manufacturers, especially for ukuleles and guitars. It's a really great place to be able to do some wildlife spotting as well, as the bald eagles do love the Sitka spruce tree. So as always, looking for that little bit of white or yellow there to see the bald eagles and their nests. So that's a little bit of the background information. Let's have a look at the logistics. So just Ketchikan and Juneau, we dock in the heart of downtown. Sitka's a little different. And in fact, if you were here 3 or more years ago, you would remember that you had to take a tender boat in, as they didn't have a deep water dock for the cruise ships to come on in. Well, we do have a deep water dock now, but it's 5 miles to the north. And because of that, we've got shuttle buses that run throughout the day to get you to the downtown area. The last shuttle bus will be at 3:30 p.m. with an all-aboard time at 4. And if you are taking a shuttle bus tomorrow into town, especially listen to the driver, because they're usually locals who are very proud of their town and their community spirit, and they'll definitely give you a little bit of a free tour on the way in there. Now this is where we dock. This image here is taken from the ship, so it's a really great idea to get your perspectives here. And for those of you who are on tours, you know you get your pink envelopes, and we always say, read the meeting place, read the time. It's especially important for tomorrow because there's 3 or 4 different meeting places. I'm going to run through those, and even if you're heading out independently, those places are going to be important as well. So the first one will say, meet in front of the ship on the pier. You can see the lady here in the fluorescent green. She's going to be putting you onto any of the morning tours that are heading out to do fishing, on the smaller boats, jet cat exploration, anything going to see otters or other wildlife. They generally meet right there in front of the pier. Also some of the Zodiac adventure tours as well. It might say meet in front of the terminal building. That's that big building, so you're going to head over the little bridge up there. That's the building with the blue or silvery grey roof there, rectangular roof. And in front of that building is where the shuttle buses will leave to drop you downtown. It also might say the shuttle drop-off point, so you'll have to factor in all of that into your time to get to the downtown area. Now what I also want to highlight in this image is the white tent there. If you missed Tracy's Crab Shack yesterday, or you went there and you still want more crab, that's where you're going to get the best crab in Sitka. It's conveniently located for us. And you can choose between king crab, Dungeness crab, and you can actually choose which crab is still alive. So very, very fresh crab there. Both places have Wi-Fi, and the terminal building has a really great map to help you get out and about tomorrow. We will be dropping you off at the downtown area. It's right in the central part of it, and it's the Harrigan Centennial Hall. That's what you'll be looking for. That hall also has maps there for you. It works as a mini visitor centre. There's a major visitor centre just 1 block from where the shuttle will drop you off. And so let's have a look here. This is just another image about how beautiful Sitka is. Last week we had a sunny day in Sitka. I could barely recognise it. And I can tell you that Sitka is spectacular, rain, hail or shine. So whatever weather we get, Sitka looks good. And so a little bit more about the differences between Juneau and Ketchikan and Sitka and so forth. So yes, I've mentioned this community spirit. Here in Sitka, there's no Diamonds International, there's no big brands like that. There is a McDonald's. It's meant to be one of the most expensive McDonald's in the world because everything has to be brought in by boat. And there is a Subway. There's the Last Standing Radio Shack. I know most of you booked this cruise just to go to that, right? Yeah, so go there, get your photo of that. So a little bit more again of like, you're going to see more individuals running their own little tours, their own little shuttles and their own taxi services. They are licensed. Sometimes you will be wondering, is that for real? But yes, it is. And last week I told this story. There's one lady, she's got long hair, she's a local Alaskan. I see her every week, so there's only a handful of drivers that can offer these, so keep that in mind. And I said to everyone, yep, she's very friendly, just don't talk politics with her. And someone came back and they said, we got the lady and we talked politics and everything's okay. And I was like, all right, cool, okay then. But instead, so you're going to see little kids selling their homemade cookies here, and also they'll be selling homemade lemonade. So this is what you're seeing. It's like going back in time to when everyone was one big family and we all got along, a true Alaskan town. Now let's have a quick look at some of the places of interest, starting with our Russian influence places. So we've got the St. Michael's Cathedral. This sits in the middle of the downtown area. There's one main street that runs downtown. It's called Lincoln Street. When Lincoln breaks into a fork, this church is sitting right there in the middle of the fork. So this was built between the years of 1844 and 48. It was totally destroyed by fire in January of 1966. Many of the precious icons and religious objects, however, well, they were saved. So when this building was on fire, the local community, instead of running away from the building, they all ran in and grabbed whatever they could possibly hold in their hands. So a lot of those relics from the 1840s were saved, which is great. For that really great story, it is listed on the National Register of Historical Places. This one here, it's the oldest intact Russian building in Sitka, built in that same time period. And of course, as the name would suggest, it was the residence for the bishop of the Orthodox Church. It also served as a school and a chapel. Again, it's been restored to reflect that historic period of architecture, and what they used to do then was always source local materials. Again, it's on the main street, Lincoln Street there, which runs right through the heart of downtown. Now, the Baranof Castle Historical Site, also known as Castle Hill, well, head up there just for spectacular views of Sitka Sound. You may have heard this title, Sitka Sound, Sitka Sound. These are all the small little islands that sit there in Silver Bay, and that's what we call Sitka Sound. It's very calm, it's very pleasant, it's just beautiful to look at. But it's about what happened at that site. So the historic site, it began as an early stronghold of the Tlingit clan. Later on, a succession of Russian buildings were erected here, the last one known as Baranov's Castle. But on October 18, 1867, this was the official site of the transfer of Alaska from Russia to the US. This is where the Alaska Purchase took place. And what you can see here are guests reading the information panels or plaques here, giving them more information on that time period and the importance of what happened on that day. So this is about a 10-minute walk from where the shuttle bus will drop you off. You'll walk down Lincoln Street, you'll hit the really nice chocolate store. They've got really great chocolates in there. If you happen to have time on your hands, remember that I really like chocolates from there, all this help I've been giving you throughout the week. And then behind the chocolate store, you'll see the stairs going up to the site just there. Now, where we drop you off, as I mentioned, it was the Harrigan Centennial Hall. And in here, this building houses a couple of different venues, if you will. The Sitka Historical Society and Museum. It's an auditorium for public use. It's got the Baranov Arts and Crafts Association, and it's got the presentation of the new Archangel Dancers. They're an all-female volunteer dance troupe that perform their authentic cultural show all around the world. They celebrate Sitka's heritage by delivering spirited dance renditions that represent the cultures of Russia, Moldova, and the Ukraine. And they do a 30-minute show that's at 12:30 p.m. tomorrow. And also the museum here, this one is packed with displays, photographs, and artifacts from the three periods that I've already touched on, the Tlingit, the Russian, and the American history. If you're wanting to get an overall view of how Sitka came to be, this is a really great first place to go here. Also, for those of you looking for something a little more unique to purchase, perhaps something that says Made in Alaska, this will be a great place to go as well. The gift shop here, it supports the museum, and it's got exclusive offerings that were made only for the museum. Now, the Sheldon Jackson Museum, despite its name, because the name kind of throws you off a little bit, this is housing Alaskan native materials that were gathered by the Presbyterian missionaries. Sheldon Jackson, he's known as one of the four founders there, and bringing English to the Tlingit people, and therefore bringing them into modern day society. The Octagon building itself, very important. It was the first concrete building in all of Alaska, and it's also listed on the National Register of Historical Places. Now, the Sitka Sound Science Centre, this is actually just across the road from the Sheldon Jackson Museum. It's got saltwater aquariums, it's got fish tanks, touch tanks that you can have fun there, as you can see, good for the kids and kids at heart. But I think even more interestingly, this is an active salmon hatchery. The salmon are returning, and you would have learnt in the Wild Alaska presentation that they return to the exact stream or river that they were born in. Well, if they were born in a hatchery, they're returning to that exact area. So it's very interesting. You can see them all jumping out the front of this building, all the salmon there. And if you are heading here, well, be sure to have a look at the building just next door. There's a famous restaurant here in Sitka called Ludwig's. Ludwig's is a Russian restaurant, or Russian owned, but they're not open for lunch. Then they started to realize that they're losing a lot of business, so they've opened a pop-up tent next to the Sitka Sound Science Centre, and they just sell their chowder. Mark my words, it's the best chowder that you will have here in Alaska. So try that one. Now, a little further out, we hit the Alaska Raptor Center. Here you'll see dozens of raptors in residence, including the formidable bald eagle, golden eagles, hawks, falcons, and owls as well. You'll get to learn about their habitats and how they became residents of the Raptor Center. Now, they treat anywhere between 100 to 200 bald eagles per year. And the great thing about this place, it is a rehabilitation and a re-release operation. So they really are working towards trying to get the birds back to their primal health and heading them back out into their natural habitat. Now, if you are heading out there, be sure to look for, because if you blink, you'll miss them, Tootsie, who's the northern saw-whet owl, and another one which is a pygmy owl. He's called Petey. These guys are sitting at the front desk. and if you don't look for them, you will miss them, but they are super cute. And for those of you who are heading out here on one of the tours, you will be delighted with the presentation. They call it a bird on hand presentation, where they get you in a classroom area like this and they bring out one of the raptors. They may do a flyby, or you'll just learn about that specific raptor.